So now it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Amany Abd El Hameed. Amany has an MA in Ancient Egyptian on the second tenses in Middle Egyptian and has published and presented on this and related topics. She is now a PhD candidate in the Museum Studies program at the Helwan University in Egypt, where her project is entitled Untold Stories in the Abydos Egyptological Archives, Rediscovering the Past and Building the Future from the Archives to the Digital Museum. Amany has several grants and honors related to her work, both on the laborers at Abydos and on reconstructing the disparate archives of Abydos excavations, both here and in London. She is presently the first Joan Hawkins resident Egyptologist at the Robert Anderson Trust in the UK, with her project Abydos, Reuniting the Archives. And Amany is actually joining us from London, so thank you very much for joining us at what is perhaps not the most convenient hour for you. I'm sure we're all looking forward to learning more about the important role of workers on excavations, and so I'd like to hand over to Amany now for her presentation, The Hidden History of Egyptian Labor in Abydos. Amany.
Thank you, Steve, for the introduction. Thank you so much for supporting my research. I can now share my screen. Is that okay now? Okay.
Yes, if you want to just put it in full screen for us.
Yeah. Sorry.
It looks perfect.
So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my research about the hidden history of the Egyptian labor in Abydos. First of all, I want to thank all of the sites that supported my research. I want to thank the Penn Museum, the Penn Cultural Heritage Center. I want to thank the Robert Anderson Trust, the Egypt Exploration Society, and my home university, Helwan University in Egypt, and the Wintergreen Foundation for supporting this research about the labors, the history of the labors in Abydos. Who can say that this region doesn't conceal beneath the ground some majestic work of the most ancient Egyptians that may bring surprises as astonishing as those of Abydos? This quote said by Edward Neville in 1914 about Abydos. As a native girl from Sohagaya, I'm here today to offer the tale of Abydos excavations through my Upper Egyptian eyes. I'm a girl from Upper Egypt, from Sohag Governorate, but I was born in Al-Bashandi, which is a small village in the Dakhla Oasis in the New Valley Governorate in Egypt. When I was 5 years old, I used to play in the street near an area where the foreign excavations were being conducted. Every day I saw the foreigner old man wearing a hat sitting under an umbrella because of the sun, to protect himself from the sun, and holding a lot of papers and pencil and sketching while supervising and overseeing the workers in the site. I'd go every day to watch him from afar. One day he saw me over and he gave me a biscuit and took a photo of me with his camera. I remember that day I was wearing a yellow dress, holding a pottery shirt to play with. And that photo has remained etched in my memory, along with the image of the foreigner who inspired me to aspire to be like him, wearing a hat, holding a numerous paper, and overseeing workers at the site. After that, I returned with my family to our original home in Sohag, in Upper Egypt, to live in with a simple village, which was my hometown, this village, about 2 hours by car from the Abydos area. In the first grade of my prep school, in the year of 2000, my school organized like a trip to Al-Araba al-Madfuna and Akhmim al-Hawawish. It was then that I saw foreigners again in Al-Araba al-Madfuna, and the dream of the girl from a village in Upper Egypt to become an archaeologist working in the archaeological field, wearing a hat and overseeing excavation work was awakened within me. Now, after this long time, I can say that little village girl from Sohag has made her way to work on the excavations and at Abydos, and to do her PhD at Helwan University about Abydos in the Egyptological archives, and become a consulting scholar at the Penn Cultural Heritage Center. And now she made her way to London to become the first resident Egyptologist scholar at the Robert Anderson Trust, where she is conducting her research project about Abydos, reuniting the archives housed at the Egypt Exploration Society in London. But I didn't buy the hat till now. Okay, this is the map for Abydos to show where is Abydos. Abydos in Sohag in Upper Egypt. This is a map for the sites inside Abydos, the excavation site like al-Ka'ab, the city temple, the Ramses II temple, the low desert, the Senusert tomb, the Senusert the third tomb, Ahmos tomb, and this is the whole area of Abydos. Yeah. To know a little bit about Abydos, the archaeological site of Abydos is located in Upper Egyptian province of Sohag. Approximately, it's 270 miles south of Cairo. The standing ruins of ancient Egyptian temples and tombs have been worked for millennia. The first excavations authorized by the Egyptian Antiquity Service were conducted between 1858 and 1861 by the director of the Antiquity Service, August Mariette, in that time. Hundreds of rural people, or fallahin, were conscripted by Mariette to work at the site, and they uncovered vast quantities of ancient inscribed material. The excavations were hazarded with no record find context. After that, Petrie's excavations initiated a long relationship between the EES, the Egypt Exploration Fund, which became the Egypt Exploration Society, and the site of Abydos, which ran from 1899 to 1947. And from 1967 onwards, the site has become excavated by the Penn-Yale mission, and subsequently Penn-Yale and NYU IFA. In 1967, David O'Connor, the curator in charge of the Egyptian section at the Penn Museum, initiated the work at Abydos with William Kelly Sampson, professor of Egyptology at Yale University, in what became the joint Penn-Yale expedition to Abydos. Significant work conducted across the 30 years of Penn-Yale expedition include investigations and conservations of the Shunut el-Zabib funerary enclosures and discovery of the First Dynasty wooden booths in North Abydos. Several other institutions are also engaged in Abydos excavations, such as the Peabody Museum, the Institute of Fine Arts, New York University, the German Archaeological Institute in Cairo, and the Princeton University, some in partnership with the joint expedition and the others operating independently. Practically all of the archaeological work which has been conducted at Abydos since 1899 has been carried out with the Gufti labor and that of the other local workmen from the local area, which is Bani Mansour and the Arab. Here we will start to speak about the native archaeological talents. To start by the place. Was it Kharaba or Araba? Is Araba the oldest name, or was it Kharaba? Let's tell the story. Ahmed Effendi Naguib, who was an inspector in the Service des Antiquités, in 1893, he wrote a book named called Al-Athar al-Jalil لقدماء وادي النيل. In his book, he wrote about the first dynasty and the Old Kingdom, and he wrote that the first dynasty tombs are found in Al-Kharaba al-Madfuna. Kharaba, which means ruins, so Kharaba Madfuna, which means the buried ruins. So he mentioned Al-Araba al-Madfuna as Al-Kharaba al-Madfuna, the buried ruins, in 1893. And in his book, Ali Pasha Mubarak was a prominent figure in Egypt during the latter half of the 19th century, serving as both the Minister of Public Work and the Minister of Education, regarded as one of the Egypt's most influential and skilled reformers of the 19th century. He made significant contributions to the country's development and modernization effort. In his book, which is a great book written by Ali Pasha Mubarak about Cairo and its cities and villages, his book called the الخطط الجديدة لمصر القاهرة, or الخطط التوفيقية. In his book, Ali Pasha Mubarak wrote about the Araba, or the Arabat, which means a lot of Araba. He mentioned it like the buried ruins also as Kharaba. And then he divided to 3 Arabat: Arabat Abu Krisha, Arabat Abu Dahab, and Al-Araba al-Madfuna. When he talked about Al-Araba al-Madfuna, he mentioned it. And he explained that Al-Araba al-Madfuna was an important old city in Upper Egypt, like Tiba. He described the area, which contains al-Ka'ab city temple, the Ramses II temple, and the tombs. He described the topography of the Abydos area. And he introduced a great architecture description for the antiquities in Abydos. And then he said, all of these kharabat, which means ruins, all of these kharabat are found in Al-Kharaba al-Madfuna. Okay, now we still have the question. If it was Kharaba, if it was Al-Kharaba al-Madfuna, so why did it become Al-Araba al-Madfuna? You can say it simply. When the foreigners or the Europeans came to the area of Al-Kharaba al-Madfuna, we all know that Kharaba in Arabic, the letter Kha in Arabic, the Europeans cannot pronounce Kha in Arabic. So they couldn't pronounce it as Kharaba. So they start to say Araba. And from that time, it became Araba Madfuna, or Al-Araba al-Madfuna. In the Egyptian press, Abydos in the Egyptian press. In this section of my research, I want to raise the voice and say that the Egyptian press was interested in the excavations at Abydos in that time. So the Egyptians were interested in their heritage and in their antiquities. Okay, in 1903, Al-Muqtatif newspaper, which is Egyptian newspaper, They published about an article named The Oldest Egyptian Antiquity. In this article, they published about Dr. Flinders Petrie, who did an excavations at Abydos, and they discussed the excavations or published the discovery that Petrie did. And in this article, they published also the negotiation happened between Petrie and the French director of the Service des Antiquités in that time, De Morgan, when Petrie said to him, mentioning the French work in Abydos, and he said, these excavators in Abydos destroyed the area, and they didn't know how valuable these antiquities. We know all the time that Petrie was like trying to say like the French cannot do scientific excavations. So this negotiation was published in the Al-Muqtatif journal in that time. And in Al-Muqtatif journal in 1914, also they published about Abydos and the history of the city and the history of the temples, the tombs, and also they published about the excavation, the discoveries that Monsieur Naville did in this place. The history of excavations at Abydos. As we mentioned, firstly, about the ES excavations and the Penn Museum excavations, there is a great relationship between the ES or the Egypt Exploration Fund and the Egypt Exploration Society with the University of Pennsylvania and the Penn Museum. Here we can see Dr. Flinders Petrie and Sarah York Stevenson. And now we can speak about both. Sarah Stevenson, a wealthy Philadelphian, joined the American branch of the Egypt Exploration Fund, which was founded by Amelia Edwards in London in 1882. Sarah Stevenson maintained a good relations with London's Exploration Society and corresponded with Petrie, whose finds significantly benefited the museum by becoming a major sponsor of both the Egypt Exploration Fund and the British School of Archaeology in Egypt, funded by Petrie. The University Museum played a key role in the rich documentation of these archaeological themes. In 1890, Sarah York received artifacts from Petrie's excavations in Egypt in exchange for the support of the American Exploration Society given to him. And here we can see a good relationship, a good connection between the EEF and the Penn Museum through this statue. And this statue were gifting by the EEF, gifting to the Egyptian artifacts to the museum, this statue for Ramses II, and it's displayed now at the Penn Museum. We can see here the name of the EEF director, Winslow, the EEF director of the EEF Boston office in that time. He gifted this statue to the Penn Museum. Also, we can see here these minutes from this archive from the EES archives. We can read the following new members were elected to the EES membership, and we can see the library of the University of Pennsylvania. Yeah. Okay, now I want to raise this voice. When you think of Abydos excavation, whose name sprang to mind first? if I will ask you about excavations at Abydos, whose name will you remember?
There's nothing in the chat yet. But if anyone has a guess or wants to answer, please put it in the chat and I'll read it out to Amany. Amany, I would say for me, it's Dr. David O'Connor.
Okay. Great name. Yeah. We all know how Dr. David O'Connor did a great effort in Abydos.
Someone is answering Petrie, O'Connor,
Okay.
Henry Frankfurt.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure, we will say, yeah. Flinders Petrie, Margaret Murray, Henry Frankfurt, Felton, John Garstang, Newberry, David O'Connor, David Silverman. Yeah, they did a great effort actually for the excavation site for Abydos. They did a great effort for the history of Abydos, and they discovered a great discoveries. But just are those just who worked in the excavations at Abydos? Okay, let's see this short video.
Welcome, traveler, to the land of Egypt, where the sands whisper tales of ancient mysteries, timeless wonders. I am Seti, keeper of the secrets buried within these hallowed temples.
I want to thank Dr. Hisham Khalaf for creating this virtual reality video for our project on Abydos, showing a case, showcasing how the archaeological work was conducted there during that time. I think this video will answer a lot of questions. This was the case. Then we can raise another voice or question. Who was doing the work? In the Journal of Al-Muqtatif, they wrote about Sir William Flinders Petrie, and they said Flinders Petrie stayed for his first 2 years for his time in Egypt. He was measuring the pyramids and the temple. After that, he trained a group from the Egyptian laborers, and they started the excavations with him. So they stated that, this journal stated that Petrie trained a group of workers, and after that he worked with them, or they worked with him in the excavation site. Then we can ask how we know what we know, how we know these informations and the hidden stories, how we know the untold stories. The answer is the archives. The archives are the flip side of writing the history, no matter how much truth is ignored and buried under the soil. There will come a day for its rediscovery. Then another question, why were Egyptian laborers often marginalized in the foreign excavations? Okay. Oh, sorry. The documents I will talk about in the next section relate to the 1920s. Now, Egypt in the 1920s is probably most famous for Tutankhamun's discovery in 1922, but there was also a great deal of politics associated with archaeology in that time. Britain had occupied Egypt since 1882, following which the number of archaeological excavations in country exploded. Hundreds of excavations had been initiated from 1882 to 1920, with the majority of them being funded by the British interests. Europeans has long argued that it was they who could best protect Egypt's cultural heritage, and that the local Egyptians didn't care about this heritage as a result of their ignorance or their religion, maybe. British officials, as we shall see here, made similar claims that archaeology in Egypt should be left to British. However, by 1920, there was a large anti-colonial sentiment in Egypt. The revolution of 1919 had curbed British power within the country and opened the door for the Egyptian nationalists to enter government. The Wafd party, led by Saad Zaghloul, represented a popular anti-colonial government. As aspect of Egyptian nationalist politics in the 1920s was oriented around the country's ancient past, whilst European had claimed to own this knowledge, and further claimed Egyptians had no interest. Egyptian nationalists saw the ancient Egyptian past as their heritage, as a glorious past of which they were modern descendants as a consequence of Egyptian nationalism in 1920s. The politics of archaeology within Egypt shifted a little, causing an anxiety within organizations such as the Egypt Exploration Fund, that their monopoly on extracting cultural property and knowledge might be restricted by renewed Egyptian interest in their own past. Through my research in London that I'm conducting in the Egypt Exploration Society archives here in London, I'm studying a lot of letters, correspondence, diaries related to Abydos, which kept here in the Egypt Exploration Fund Society. Through these letters, we can read this letter. We can read, I'm extremely sorry. Okay, this letter sent maybe from the president to the ES vice president to say, I'm extremely sorry that to say that there is a rumor going about here that certain administrative posts in the service of antiquities, which have heretofore always been placed in the hands of Europeans, might possibly be conceded to Egyptian archaeology in Egypt, once more being used to our district as a pawn in the political game. Okay, we can remember this letter, okay? Then, after this letter, after like 8 years from these letters, we will find this letter. The president read amended draft of his letter to His Highness Prince Yusuf Kamal. The committee asked him to proceed in the matter and endeavor to enlist the sympathy of Egyptians in the work of the society. So, yeah, despite of the colonial letter, of this colonial voice, we can see that after 8 years, they asking His Highness Prince Yusuf Kemal, who is Egyptian, to spread the word about the society and the work of society between the Egyptian people, maybe the Egyptian important people. In the same letter, we can read, I believe indeed that the Muslim religion is definitely antagonistic to any interest in the monuments of a people who, in their view, were idolaters and heretics. I beg you, therefore, on behalf of the many learned societies whose mouthpiece I am, on account of my official position as regards to the Egypt Exploration Fund, to discountenance firmly any such vandalistic measure as Romer has suggested. Indeed, I sincerely trust that the Romer may have been completely without the foundation. We can see how the voice is against the Muslim, how he is trying to keep the Egyptians and the Muslims away from their heritage. Okay. To reply to this letter, we can read in Ahmed Effendi Naguib's book in 1893 to see, to see that Ahmed Effendi Naguib stated that in his book, the Sahaba, who are the Prophet Muhammad friends or the Prophet Muhammad companions, in 640 AD, they didn't destroy the monument, and they said these antiquities are telling us the stories of the previous generations. And after them, the following Muslims followed the same opinion. If this letter is written by around 1980, maybe, yeah, and this book has been written by 1893, it's like 20 years before, then I think, from my perspective, the main issue for this kind of colonialism or this kind of attitude, that the man who wrote this letter didn't read Arabic, so he didn't read this book, and he didn't know that the Muslim can protect their heritage. Actually, we can say that these opinions, I mean the European opinions against the Egyptians, with no evidence, because we can see the Egyptian government and the Egyptians issued the first law to protect the antiquity since 1835, and they issued many protection law for the antiquities. So how those people can destroy their heritage? Okay, in another letter, we can see like France having, through her right of appointing the director of the Service of Antiquities, a nominal control of the service. The British Empire has been placed at a disadvantage in its effort to obtain its rightful to share the antiquity for its museum. The disadvantage will be doubtly felt now that Britain and become the protecting power, if it were possible to distribute to the old colonial museums interesting ancient objects from Egypt. Okay, in this letter, I think, yeah, we can see how the negotiations between the French and the British about who should control the services antiquity and who should control the antiquities in Egypt. Actually, they are negotiating about the Egyptian antiquities, which is related to the Egyptians, and they are trying also to keep the Egyptians away from their heritage. This was the everyday racism and the colonial attitude. This was the Egyptian prince, His Highness Prince Yusuf Kamal, and here's His Highness Prince Ismail Dawood and Her Highness Princess Qadriya Hussein. We will find the three of their names are here in the Egypt Exploration Society reports. Here in this letter, we will find that the following new members were elected, and we will find His Highness Prince Yusuf Kamal, His Highness Prince Dawood, and Her Highness Princess Qadriya Hussein. Princess Qadriya Hussein was elected like a life member of the society. Also, with the minutes, we can see, or in the report, we can see the reorganization of the American and Egyptian branches of the society was discussed. The president read the draft of a letter, which he proposed sending to His Highness Prince Yusuf Kamal. It was decided that copies of the letters of this letter should be sent to all members of the committee for consideration and question brought up at the next meeting. Also, there is another Egyptian persons who were elected for the membership in the society, Yasser Bey Shara and Hassan Sobhi. Okay. Now we can see in the diaries of Henry Frankfurt, in the Lucy Gore archives, in the EES archives, you can see how did His Highness Prince Yusuf Kamal, how did he do a great effort for the excavations at Abydos. We can see in Cairo with Sir John Maxwell to meet Sir Ribasha, then via Wingfield to Hannabi Bakhoum in El Daira, Prince Yusuf Kamal, who promised a pump and a loco machine, brought 200-meter wire rope and 35-meter riding rope in the cemetery. So there was a problem with the Osirian, the water in the Osirian, so they need to fix it, and they need to extract the water. So Yusuf Pasha Kamal promised them to donate them with the pump and the loco machine to help them to extract the water. The unseen Masriyin, like my colleague Robert, named them and mentioned them, the unseen Masriyin or the unseen Egyptians. Here we can speak about the unseen voices in the archaeological excavations. The Guftis workmen operate within a unique leadership structure where the possessions of the Rais has been held within the same family for generations. The Rais is generalized term that means leader, but is most commonly understood with the archaeological lexicon as a foreman. Rais is therefore a descriptor of seniority, and anyone designated as Rais assume managerial and logistical control of some aspect of the excavations. Also, the term Rais is not exclusive to Guftis. It's widely adopted across sites in Egypt. For example, Peter's long-time Rais, Ali Muhammad al-Suwifi, was not a Gufti, but from the Fayoum. What is unique about the position of Rais among Gufti workmen is how it has become wed to kingship networks and often passing from father to son or other closest male relative. We can say that Rais Ali Abd El Hameed Omar, who was the first Gufti's Rais at Abydos, appointed by Petrie in 1899, and he continued as Rais until his death in 1922. When he passed away, the rule was passed down to his son, Ahmed Ali Omar, who was himself succeeded by his cousin, Hafni Ibrahim Salama, and Hafni Salama would rise from 1967 until his death in 1978. Hafni Salama trained his brother, Hussein Ibrahim Salama, and his nephew, Muhammad Ali Ibrahim, who later succeeded Hafni Salama as Rais at Abydos. Hafni's brother Hussein became the Rais in Saqqara rather than taking up his brother's old position. Muhammad Ali Ibrahim served as the Rais from 1978 until 1995. And Muhammad Ali Ibrahim trained his son, Rais Ibrahim Muhammad Ali, who is in the picture here, who succeeded to be like the Rais, who succeeded him as a Rais of the Guftis at Abydos. Ibrahim Muhammad Ali recently was the Rais at Abydos, but sadly we missed him. He passed away last year, and the Rais now is his cousin. These are the unseen Masriyin, the unseen Egyptians, who was working with the bomb that Yusuf Kamal donates to the work in Abydos. They were trying to help with installation of the bomb and the local engine. In his diary, Frankfurt said, Tuesday, January 5th, Souk to Naga Hammadi, taken over a centrifugal pump and a local engine to drive it on the estate of Prince Yusuf Kamal. Time wasted with the chief engineer Holgate, also taken on Mustafa, I think it was Mustafa Abdurrahman, and Ginawi Hussein, the fireman. Mustafa Abdurrahman was the engineer. The time wasted by Chief Engineer Holgate because he wasted the time installing the pump and the engine, and some problems happened with the pump and he couldn't fix it. He couldn't repair it. Thursday, January 7th, wasted a day thanks to the lazy and inefficient Holgate. Friday, January 8th, Felton to Naga Hammadi with almost all the men and to fetch the engine, but lost the day because the Holgate's uselessness. Because Holgate, yeah, he couldn't repair the pump and he wasted the time of the directors. 27 March, a native engineer, Abdul Latif Ibrahim, Pentram, I think this was scratched in the diary, work discovered the fault of the engine and repairs it, which means that the foreigner engineer Holgate wasted the time, and the local engineer Abdul Latif discovered the fault and repaired it. In Frankfurt diaries also, we can see here, outlined with scratched on the stone before the work started. Okay, in the Osirian work only Muhammadin Hassan, the Navilis old Rais, and Ahmed Abdel Salam with 2 boys. The cleared stone and sand make a dam in the canal for the stone. 19 November, struck by the fact that on the top of the western wall of the central part, a fine black granite key was easily to be reached, but we had it lifted as Muhammadin Hassan and Ahmed had cleared the room. Its bottom contains the Nither min Ma'atra, cartouche and black ink, partly uncut. We can see here, this is the place, this is the room where they found the cartouche, and this is the key granite cartouche. And then we can see who did this discovery, who discovered this discovery. Was it just Henry Frankfurt or the two workmen? In another, in the same diary, I mean, in another page, we can see a fine yellow limestone statue of the 12th dynasty. The left shoulder chopped off and missing was found afterwards by renewed attempts of Mubarak. Mubarak was one famous workman in the excavations at Abydos and El Amarna. And here we can see in the east channel, the back of the statue is found with cartouche of Seti Mri and Betah. We work now with 6 gang. The big gang clears big stones. The small gang packs them closely in the western room. Sawag and his gangs clear the sand of the central island and then proceed to clear much out of the east channel. Their railway will come just above water level on the timer and clear away the stones. Number 3, Ata in Moray's passage on higher up, and after that bring them sand up. Carriage takes it out to the west, outside to the Timonus wall, at the foot of the brick wall in the vault, of which now both walls appears. One gang higher up there. Then all of these gangs works in the Osirian at the same time. Here is the map of the gangs that Frankfurt tried to like draw it to say, like on the top we can see the name of the workers and the name of the gang. He wrote like Muhammadin. We can see the name of Ata. We can see the name of Ahmed. We can see the Jabal cutting. We can see, yeah, in this plan, he tried to show the gang places in the Osirian. Yeah, like that. In this diary, he said, yeah, and 21 January, the last small stones are removed and we start on the largest blocks. In the passage work now about 300 boys and some 70 men. Some small stuff are found, like the outside wall, the small head, another small head found on the railway, a very thin prehistoric knife, a female terracotta inside wall, a broken horn head, limestone ostracon with shrieking head, item with cow's head, outside wall, Roman lamp, fragment with figure of breast, inside wall, regular remains of the prehistoric settlement on the blacktop sherds, fine flint knives, one fragment of fine jeweled bowl. So we can see here that in this place there are 300 boys and 70 men, and they find all of these findings and artifacts. Okay. You can see this diary. On Wednesday, February 3rd, work began with both railway, each of which employed about 15 local men to pull the truck out of the passage by means the sakya and rope, and 10 villagers were employed. Here we can see the workers when they were trying to remove the railway, the workers. We can see a lot of workers actually. And here are the workers who are standing in front of the bump after installing. And here are the army of the native archaeological talents. Okay, in this page, Mr. and Mrs. Frankfurt, they went to Luxor to stay there and to write the official report about the excavation result and what did they found, and yeah, everything about the season. And actually they wrote a very nice official report like what we are seeing here. They are describing the findings and the excavation season in Abydos without mentioning any name from the Egyptian workers or the Egyptian names who supported in the season. This was the payment day, yeah, when the workers are got paid from the foreign director. After this season, we can see and say that despite all of the effort both by Egyptians during the excavations, the official report of the season findings didn't include any of the Egyptian names who worked on the site. And now let's quickly return back to the question, who was doing the excavations? Now, I think you can answer this question, right? I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Richard Leventhal and to my colleague, Dr. Robert Vigar, for all of their support that they have provided for my research. Words cannot express my gratitude enough. I really owe you both. Thank you so much, and see you all in Abydos.